Hello, and welcome to my final for the Environmental and Occupational Health here at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. And without further ado, hi, boss. Welcome to the EPA. I know that you are from out of state, and so you are maybe unfamiliar with some of the lay of the land and what's going on. So I am Alex Eliason, and I'm something of a data nerd. And that's how you get to be in the position that I'm in. And so I wanted to let you know what you're coming into. I put together a PowerPoint because I'm kind of a nerd. It's what I do. So to let you know, we have reports that there is a town with increased cancer, specifically Crossett in southeast Arkansas. And so let's talk about that. Some of the major shareholders of this, of course, are the city and us, the EPA, because we are the arbiters of the environment and making sure that there are resources and are conserved, and that the world we live in is safe. So specifically in Crossett, there is one very large factory. They do a lot of things. They do paper, plastics, resin. A lot of really great stuff, really common products that we use in our daily world. Unfortunately, this factory also doesn't have the best track record for the environment. Specifically, they are responsible for 100% of the toxic release inventory in the county. That means that if anything has gone wrong, it's literally these guys as basically the best explanation. On top of being the only real polluters in town, they're one of the highest polluters for their industries. So of the 1,900 different people or industries, ranked 69th, and that puts them in the top 0.03% of polluters. So really not a good track record. And that's part of the history of this factory as well. So it started as a wood factory back in the 1960s, and it was a major contributor to the economy, and it brought in a lot of jobs, and that was great. When the Clean Water Act passed, we started looking at the water, and there's documentation going back that essentially they turned their waterway, their nearby creek, called Coffee Creek, into Coffee Creek. That is to say, it was brown and not particularly good for water life. It can sustain some things, we found in one report that we published, but people are afraid to go in that water, and they call it Stink Creek now, because it is not good. So another incident that GP is involved with happened in 1999, and people began to complain about the emissions from the factory, specifically that those emissions were corroding AC units and wiring, copper wiring. And the response of GP was to go door to door and find people who were unhappy about the environment, the condition of the environment, and pay them. Paid them to exempt them, and I quote, of any and all past, present, or future, known, unknown, foreseen, or unforeseen bodily and personal injury or death. So GP essentially, in response to complaints that they are polluting, went and tried to buy immunity from citizens. For me, that's a red flag that something's going on. Like their culture in their corporate culture is toxic. Probably is about as toxic as their emissions. Also, perhaps uncoincidentally, that year, a law was passed that exempted that factory from hydrogen sulfide emission testing. We would later, as part of the EPA, would go and investigate, and perhaps unsurprisingly, there was some very, very high levels of hydrogen sulfide. The legal limit is 80 in a residential area or 100 in a non-residential area, and some of the recordings that we had put them into the tens of thousands of units. So I will say that they were making good use of their exemption. And this is been a very profitable industry, historically speaking, and they share those profits with the workers. And so politically, this is a very important facility for the town. It is their lifeblood. And so I can understand why they would be hesitant to, why the town might be hesitant to overly regulate and be really zealous and clamp down. But these reports of cancer coming out of Crossett are really disturbing to me, and I think that we should look into it. Another snag, shall we say, is that this factory is owned by the Koch brothers, or Koch industry more appropriately. So that, maybe you're not aware, but they are a very well funded, politically connected group. Run by a billionaire who has spent literally millions of dollars to campaign against the EPA and its ability to regulate and police the environment. And so know that this is something that we're going to have to contend with if we choose to go after these guys, because it is a politically charged environment, for better or for worse. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the environment and not just give background, because I think that it's important, but I think that it is very important that you know how it is to be, or that it came to be that we are where we are. So, in 2015, we did an inspection, and to put it lightly, GP did not pass. We levied millions of dollars in fines, and we mandated that we would be looking at their air pollution, specifically hydrogen sulfide, because they were in such flagrant violation of that law, the national standards. And so we also were monitoring the water. And so in 2016, we went out, we looked at the water in the tap, and it was fine. Totally fine. Well, almost fine. They came back a little high for one of the hydrocarbons. The legal limit was 0.064, and it came back at 0.67. We opted not to go after them because it still was within the one below the threshold for 1 in 1,000 that we caught for causing cancer. That was in 2016, though. 2018. If you take a look at the index, the RSEI index, which is essentially a total look at what's risky and being emitted, there's a huge spike in 2018. And I think that this huge spike is, if not entirely, then at least partially responsible for the increase in cancer in Crossett. And so you'll notice that this is essentially only in the water, and this change correlates with another change, which is the change in polycyclic aromatic compounds. So these are known carcinogens, and they are, I think that it's fair to say, not nice. And the industry standard is to treat what you can, but GP essentially releases all of it. And on top of that, GP has gone from being responsible for, in 2017, GP was responsible for somewhere between 1 and 2% of the total polycyclic compounds being released for the paper mills. In 2018, they were responsible for almost 10% of the total waste. So I don't know what's changed, but I really think that the way that in which that GP is managing their polycyclic compounds is at least partially responsible for the uptick in cancer. And again, these are essentially responsible for 100% of the toxins released in the environment in this county. And so we are obligated ethically and legally to look into this, even if it is politically unpopular. People are dying. Like, this is going to kill thousands of people potentially, because almost everybody in that town is going to be exposed to these. And this is from 2018. This has been going on for years, probably. I would like to think that they would correct these errors, but I just don't know. And I think that it well warrants the investigation. So I was thinking that we could go out and look at the water, get tap water. That's how we did it last time in 2016. Because, again, this is in the water, and it is suspect at best. Additionally, I think that it would behoove us to monitor air for hydrogen sulfide, as GP has a history of treating the air inappropriately, specifically for that. Also, there are reports of high levels of benzene, which is and so I think that it would also be important to check for that. But I think that it's very important that we at the EPA take our role seriously. And right now that means making sure that a company that doesn't prioritize people's healths is held accountable. So, welcome to the EPA. I hope that you're here for a long time, and I hope that you can make a difference here. Thanks.